What is going on, everybody? Welcome in. It's the Wager Alarm live stream. We're back in action. I'm Howard Bender. With me still, Craig Mish. He's still doing it. Love having you here, Craig. It's been far too long. We don't get to work together enough anymore. I've missed you so much, and I'm so eager for football season to get started.
It's great to see you, Howard, again. And yeah, this is our third year doing the Wager Alarm live streams. We have had a lot of fun the last 2 years picking games against the spread for the Super Contest, and last year we joined the Golden Nugget Contest for college football and pro football as well. And the great thing about what we did is we posted all of our results every single week with our tickets, and you can go back and watch all of the videos and see how we did, which was actually really well the last few years. So certainly proud of that. And I got to say, I don't really know what to expect this year. I think this is going to be. I mean, look, I gotta call it what it is. There's certainly a chance that everything goes off without a hitch, especially in the NFL, and things happen the way that we think they're going to happen. But I think that the average person who bets on sports and who considers entering contests like these, I think you do have to change your mindset a lot. And the one thing that I can tell you from my perspective, and I suppose I'm fortunate, but a little unfortunate to be in the situation that I am, which is knowing so much about how sports are affected by COVID-19, because I've been in the thick of it with the Miami Marlins. So I really have a full understanding as to how this works and the testing and at least how it happened on Major League Baseball side. And I think that it's important to be optimistic, and it's important to really want to have football happen, and we want it to happen. And Howard, you make your living off a lot of it, at least off football and draft guides and fantasy, and certainly I do as well over on Sports Grid. And I think it's super important for that to come back, but we also have to be realistic and understand that if you are just the casual bettor who likes to wake up on Sunday morning and bet games, you're going to have to put a little bit more work into this and understand that really patience is a virtue, Howard, this year, especially in pro football. In terms of college, I don't know what to say at this point. It looks like we're going to have several of the conferences playing it out and playing a championship, I guess. But we're not going to know for almost a month. And that's kind of the strange part, is that normally when we're here, Howard, in August, the last week, and we debut this live stream, we're previewing the college games for this weekend, right? Like, this is it. Like, this is our first one. We're doing college win totals. We're doing everything else. But from the optimistic point of view, on this live stream, you and I are going to go through every single team in the AFC, and we're going to look at their win total, and we're going to go leans, picks, over or under on that. And certainly you have been more in the thick of it of football than I have over the last month, so I'm looking forward to getting your thoughts as well.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting. I mean, listen, the preseasons for all sports right now have just been, it's crazy because you don't have all the writers there who are supposed to be there or who you're usually counting on. I walked into the MLB season this year feeling very disconnected to what was going on around, summer camp, is how they called it. So, it was very difficult, to get into it there. And now here with football, no preseason games.
Yeah.
Training camp is what it is. And listen, the NFL is also remaining very optimistic. They keep promoting how many tests they've been giving, and no positive tests. The 77 positives from a few days ago turned out to be some sort of a contamination in a testing site in New Jersey, and so they threw that out of the window, and now they're saying still no. But I'm with you. I mean, I've sat here and I've watched the way it's been with MLB, the Marlins outbreak, the Cardinals dealing with what they were dealing with, the Mets, dealing with that also. So I mean, it's like to think that this won't happen in football to a certain degree is a bit naive. And so when you're talking about wagering, you're talking about putting your hard-earned money on some of these games. It is going to be difficult, and it is going to be important to put the work in and really make sure that you're studying and you're analyzing what you need to do. We're going to give you our picks, absolutely. Sure. Yeah. But don't think that for a minute that we're not sitting there thinking this game could get pushed back, this could change, that could change. You just don't know.
Yeah. And look, there's a few things that are going to happen this year. The one thing that I could tell you from Major League Baseball's point of view in terms of the players is the first and foremost, and I have the protocol. I've read over it a million times and been over it with Major League Baseball as well. Testing negative twice and I don't know how the NFL is going to handle it as opposed to Major League Baseball, but that's the starting point, is testing negative twice over a 48-hour period. So you mentioned the word naive. Naive is the key word going into the season. If you don't think that there's not going to be an NFL game played on Tuesday night or Wednesday night this year, you're kidding yourself. That's going to happen. Games are going to be pushed back. The one hope that you would have with these season win totals, and most places you're going to bet these, Howard, as you know, is that you have to play all 16 games. This is not like Major League Baseball where you can bet a season win total in a 162 game season, and usually the caveat is the team can miss a game and you can still cash your ticket one way or the other. It's not going to be the case in football. So if one game is postponed, hypothetically until the end of the year, there's a chance that your ticket may not get cashed. So there's three things before we start tonight that I just want to go over real quick as far as my personal advice on some of these totals and how I would end up handling it. If you remember back to last year, I bet one win total and it went right down to the last week, and I didn't even take my own advice and hedge on the last day. It ended up being a push. It should have been a significant win, but the Dolphins beat the Patriots the last game of the season to get a push out of that, which was an absolute nightmare in the end, and very easily could have taken New England on the money line last game, but thought, there's no way they're going to lose at home when they need a playoff bye to Miami, and they did. That was last year. This is this year. I would not bet any over in the NFL on any of these until you get closer to the season. There's no reason to do it because you could forget about injury for a minute. If you lose any player to COVID-19 for 2 or 3 weeks and it's a quarterback, you're probably talking about an extra loss or two for your team. And if you don't think that that is the case, look how the Jets played with Sam Darnold versus when they didn't. And the Jets are not very good. And they won a lot of games with him at quarterback, and they lost a lot of games without him. The quarterback is the most important position in the league, and I think circle Sam Darnold and circle the Jets for the exact scenario that could potentially play itself out in the NFL this season. Howard, the Marlins have missed a month. There's 17 players on the Marlins that have missed a month of time, and that is baseball. The Cardinals, most of them missed 2 to 3 weeks. Some of them missed 4. Right. So to say that they're only going to miss a week or two is also being naive. It could be a long period of time. You have to be careful on the totals. Do it the week right before the season, September 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. Wait right up until there's no reason to do it now. None. Now, an under, if you feel strongly about an under, you could do that now and end up cashing in because then a player could end up being out. Someone could get hurt. You could feel really good about your bet. But that's rule number one for me. The second is, and I want your opinion on this, is the rookies in 2020. And we did see a ton of offensive rookies. I know that I play in a dynasty league fantasy draft where there were about 8 to 10 guys that I was really happy with going off the board that I thought, wow, these guys are the future, but no preseason for them, very little training camp. And to simply count on any rookie to be a game changer this year, like Kyler Murray last year, Burrow would be the guy this year for Cincinnati to see how many wins they could eke out with him at quarterback. I just don't think that they've had enough time to prepare. Last 6 games, 7 games of the season, there could be. There certainly could be a game changer there. I just don't see anyone, maybe outside of Edwards-Helaire, in the first half of the season that's going to have that kind of impact that's going to be a game changer. And what is Edwards-Helaire going to do for Kansas City anyway? Their total's already 11.5. And then finally, whenever you are betting on win totals, this is the most important. You go back and you look at the close games last year. That is the number one way that you can give yourself an easier time of making money on season win totals in baseball and in football, because there's an amount of variance that goes into close games, and teams that had a lot of close wins last year, that's not a skill. That is luck. That's a ball bouncing in the air and the defender catching it and the game ends. Right. That's going to flip the other way this year. And conversely, teams that lost a lot of close games are probably going to win some of those this year. So you really have to look at teams that won and lost by 6 points or less. And if you see 5 or 6 games like that, Howard, that's not a skill in football to win late games. It's called a kicker missed a kick or there was an interception or a fumble. And so I tend to go the other way when I see that happen. And so those are 3 things that I think that people can abide by as the football season starts in a couple weeks.
Well, how do you feel? I mean, for the close games, you say, it's not a skill, but what about quarterbacks who traditionally do perform a lot better inside that 2-minute offense and take it down the field? Then it's not about a kicker missing the field goal. It's well, I get what you're saying there. If they drive
The
down the
point
field and
is
they
that
kick
every
the
guy that
field
you're
goal,
talking about is in the Hall of Fame.
yeah, right.
And that's the end of the
Is
story.
there nobody out there who could do this for us, please?
Right, like you're not going to mention Nick Foles is a great 2-minute quarterback because he's not going to be in the Hall of Fame. Like John Elway, Dan Marino, yes, Howard, you're right, and all of
Peyton
those
Manning, so good.
and all of those win totals are going to be 11 and 12. Like that's the key. So you're talking about Drew Brees and all great quarterbacks. And so yes, that is a skill that under pressure they perform very well. But we'll talk about the NFC when we do it either later this week, I believe, or Thursday or next week, whenever we end up doing it. You're going to see a team in the NFL that was super unlucky last year. That's going to be my favorite total to go over in the NFL this year, just because of the amount of bad luck that they had at the end of the game. It's the same reason why turnovers and turnover margin, Howard, in the NFL will determine what your win-loss record is one year, but it's not a skill, it's luck. And the following year, the thing's going to flip. I mean, that's just the way it happens in the NFL. So
I feel like you've got your eye on his team in particular when you bring that up.
I do in the NFC. The
All
AFC,
right.
the AFC will go through it here. We'll have some leans and some picks and things like that. But yeah, when it comes to totals, I usually hone in on one or two. It's
Okay.
usually I don't like to bet on 10, 15 things at a time.
Beautiful. Well, let's get started. I mean, as far as the rookies go, I get what you're saying. I mean, on the fantasy side, everybody was all in on them when the draft happened. Then COVID hit, and everybody was, jumping ship, saying that they don't have enough time to prepare. There are a small handful of them who are in situations which could be interesting, but I don't think anybody really outside of Edwards-Helaire. Maybe Cam Akers for the Rams.
Yeah, he's the one that I drafted in the dynasty league that I
Okay.
have, and
So
and
I don't see anybody else
and we
being
watched him last year at FSU. Look, you're right. There's a chance, but in terms of fantasy, yes, is he a game changer win total guy for the Rams? I don't believe so. I think Edwards-Helaire, has a chance. I mean, really, with very little competition, to forget about fantasy to give a team a win or two like that. I
right.
could see he could be McCaffrey, like that's and McCaffrey is worth wins, even though the Panthers didn't win that many last year.
Well,
But
that's why it's kind of
it's
why I like
insignificant.
it's
It's
kind of like
insignificant, Howard, in terms of Edwards-Helaire because the Chiefs total's already 11 and a half. Well, how much higher do you want it to be?
I don't want it to be any higher. I'd actually like it to be lower just so I can take the over, even though you're telling me not to.
Right. So you want to get started? We'll start
Yeah,
off with
let's do it.
Baltimore.
Here we go. All right, start off Baltimore Ravens, 11.5 is the total. They won 14 last year. I mean, this team is insane. You made a note here, one game decided by 3 points or less. Does it really? I mean, it's the most reliable kicker in Justin Tucker
Right.
with an incredibly explosive offense. Year two right now. I'm a little disappointed that they didn't get any other receiving weapons that might stand out, but when you're adding another running back of Dobbins quality here, the offense stays strong as far as that goes. So, I mean, 14 wins last year, 11.5 being down. My lean is on the over.
Yeah, and I would have the same lean. Jackson is just such a dynamic player, and the last taste we had of Lamar, unfortunately, was that game against Tennessee that everyone will circle back to. But on top of the 14-2 last year, when he took over for Flacco in 2018, they went 6-1, and the one loss that they had was in overtime. So you'll have to keep an eye on the injury situation with him. I know he was back on the field, I believe, Howard, yesterday, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
So that's certainly good news there. They couldn't sack anybody last year. That was the only issue that they had. They were worse in the NFL. They only had 4 sacks all season. And believe me, I double-checked that number. It is true. They only had 4 sacks all season. I went back and checked. They were last in the NFL. So how they were able to pull off so many wins is astounding. But you can't really rush the quarterback when you have Lamar Jackson there because he's going to just run right past you. And there was a lot of sitting and waiting from the linebackers and their defensive end. So what the Ravens tried to do on their defensive end was not rush the quarterback as well and just let teams sit back there and throw as often as they did. They're going to try and change that a little bit this year. So we'll see if the strategy that teams had against them is worth going against this year. They signed Derek Wolfe, who is a pretty good edge rusher, so we'll see what kind of impact he has. I will also lean on the over 11.5. But like some other teams, their total is so predominantly on one player that I would prefer to just make this a lean and not a pick, because if something was to happen to Lamar Jackson, like 15 other teams players in the NFL, you would be looking at an under with the Ravens if they did not have him. That being said, Drew Brees went out last year. Teddy Bridgewater came in. He went 5-0. Strange things do happen in the NFL, but I'm with you on this one. I'll lean over 11.5.
All right, slide it over to the Buffalo Bills, who I actually already have action on, plus 140 to win the division. I put that down before the Patriots ended up picking up Cam Newton. I'm still confident in the plus 140 there. Just something to throw down on. Now Buffalo is 8.5 is the win total. Last year they won 10 games. Right. I really like this team. I really do. I think that they are. They benefit from, Miami Dolphins are going to have growing pains. The Jets are just, the Jets. Patriots, always a solid team, but, half their defense is already opted out of the season. And, they're kind of in a transition state as well. So, when I was going through the Bills schedule, and I still like the over on the 8.5 a little bit as far as the lean goes, because I think that they can sweep both the Jets and Miami, even though you don't want to say that. And I think they've got the talent to split with New England. So, right off the bat, right there, 4 to 5 wins inside the division. That kind of helps me out.
Yeah, and I would say that if you feel confident on betting the Bills over, the best call would be to find some place where you have 9 and not 8.5, because the 8.5 is minus 160, and if something was to go drastically wrong, you're risking $160 to win 100. It's not worth it. You may be able to get a little plus money on the 9, and worst case scenario, if you're that strong about them and then they only win 9 games, you push, you get your money back. So I don't like risking more than 130, 140 on a season win total. That's where it's at with Buffalo. As you mentioned, 10 wins last year. What's amazing is they haven't won double-digit games in back-to-back years in 20 years. So this would be a first if they're able to pull this off. First 4 games against non-playoff teams. They have one of the top hardest schedules in the NFL. Of course, they play Kansas City. They play Pittsburgh. Hypothetically, Ben Roethlisberger is back for that. My pick here is just a lean, because I see it the same way as you. But I do say that no matter what happens in that AFC East, it seems like there's always an upset or two during the season there. We go into the year thinking the teams are just going to dominate each other, and then Miami pulls off a crazy win or the Jets pull off a crazy win. So right. I wouldn't bank on that. But I do think that if there was ever a year that the Patriots could be dethroned at the top, this would be the one. And so my lean would be over 8.5, but my recommendation would be to get 9 and not risk the 160.
All right. Moving over to Cincinnati, only 2 wins last year. They won the Joe Burrow sweepstakes this year. Really kind of interesting for me, because I feel like the Bengals have a surprisingly tough schedule, given how bad they were last year. And I think, the Browns definitely got better. The Steelers are getting Big Ben back. You've got the Ravens in the division right off the bat here. The over-under is 5.5. It's probably a no bet for me, because that 5.5 is right there on the borderline. But, I could legit see them only winning 4 games this year.
Yeah, this was a surprising number for me. I'm going to lean under here for sure on the under 5.5 for a number of reasons. The first being some of the things that you just illustrated there, and one of the other things that we're talking about. I just refuse to believe that Joe Burrow getting no preseason time, no scrimmage time whatsoever is going to work into his factor in the season. He may come on later in the year and have a good year, but a lot of his success was 1 year at LSU with an offensive coordinator that, of course, is now in Carolina in Joe Brady. So I think Burrow's a special player, and he has a chance to be, but how can you possibly think that this guy is going to go from that to the NFL and automatically take the team to 500 or close to it? I don't think so. A.J. Green, I'd love to see him back. He's a big part of that team, but I can't say for sure one way or the other. He's had injury issues as well going into training camp, and I would guess you get to the halfway point and they move him. And Mixon is another guy, too, that who knows what his situation is going to be. I know that he wants to get paid, too, as he should. Their only wins last year, Howard, was against the Jets and the Browns. and they really only had one close game. More or less all the games were either wins by them that were shocks or blowouts, and they didn't win many of them. I think a good comparison here is to go back and look at last year and take the Cardinals as an example, where Kyler Murray was the first overall pick. 2 years ago, the Cardinals went 3-13, and Kyler Murray, who came in with just as much fanfare, very much a similar situation than Joe Burrow, had one good year in college, went into a new offense, very similar to Burrow, how he's going to the new offense in Cincinnati with Zach Taylor. And Kyler Murray was +2 in the win column. He gave Arizona 2 more wins because of his skills. Is Burrow better than Murray? I'm not sure. But that tells me the story this year is that give Burrow +2 over what Cincinnati won last year. That takes them from 2 to 4 wins. Give them another one too if you want. That still only takes them to 5. My lean is under 5.5 for the Bengals. I don't think they're going to be good.
I don't think they're going to be good either. I have zero faith in A.J. Green, who's already dealing with a hamstring issue. I have zero faith in him. Joe Mixon, I think the Bengals pay him. I think the Bengals realize, I mean, listen, you saw what he did at the tail end of last season once the offensive line got healthy and the team started getting a little bit more competitive. And Mixon ripped off a couple of 100-yard efforts towards the tail end of the season. I think that's like that was more of a foretelling of things to come than an aberration at the end of the year. Let's go to the Cleveland Browns right there in the north. A lot of interesting things here about the Browns. So the number is 8.5. They went 6-10 last year. They bring in Kevin Stefanski, who I wasn't really a huge fan of, but I like him bringing in Alex Van Pelt to work with Baker Mayfield. That's going to help with the footwork. It could help with the decision-making process at all. But I think really what I like most is that Stefanski has taken the ground game that he learned from Kubiak and Dennison in Minnesota, and he is instilling that same exact zone blocking scheme, the same ground game in Cleveland that we saw Dalvin Cook be a part of. Could you imagine now Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, the tandem right there, working in this system that caters to these running backs? I like the improvements that we could see here in Cleveland. The problem for me is that it's going to be a no bet for me. I might lean on the over because I do believe in them, but Browns are going to brown, dude, and that's
right.
Always
that's the problem. Yeah.
Always what happens.
It is, and it's funny that the last few years they've had a lot of hype surrounding them. And what's interesting for me is the line here, because they don't have a lot of hype surrounding them this year. There's not a lot of belief, but yet the line is still 8.5, and so it feels like a little bit of a sucker bet, honestly, to take the under here. It feels like everyone's being pushed to go, oh, it's the Browns. You got to go the under here, because that's the feeling after seeing them last year. And I'm going to go the other way. I think that with less hype surrounding them, I think that there's a chance that they could win 10 games this year. I like their squad. I love Austin Hooper. I think that was a great ad for them. It gives Mayfield an extra target there if things don't go right with Odell Beckham. They haven't over the last few years. And the other thing, they added Jack Conklin too. Another number is sacks. And usually, Howard, teams that have a horrible offensive line one year usually realize it's time to fix that the next. Mayfield was sacked 40 times last year. Browns have the third easiest schedule in the NFL, according to what happened last year. It's not a make or break for me with that, just giving you information on that as well. The key here for me also, another one is this, is that if you bet the Browns over the 8.5, their final home game of the season is against the Steelers. So you could, if you're going to bet, take the over 8.5, and if it does come down to 8, which it very well could, you could actually hedge yourself and take the Steelers in the final game of the season. And the Steelers probably not going to be a huge favorite, I wouldn't think, at Cleveland unless something drastic happens. Maybe they're 3 or 4 point favorites. You take them on the money line, you hedge your bet halfway there if it comes down to it, and you make money either way. So I will lean over on Cleveland. I was way under on Cleveland last year. I thought there was just way too much hype on them for no substance. This year, I think they have a little bit of substance, and the line is telling me it's like everyone's screaming, take the under, and usually when that happens, I like to go the other way. So I'll go contrarian on it and take the over.
I like it. All right, Denver Broncos. The number is 7.5. They won 7 games last year. This is a developing team. Now, this is a team that's built with a lot of youth. Yeah, they brought in Melvin Gordon to serve as their starting running back, but you're still looking at Drew Lock, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler. Cortland Sutton's in his 3rd year, so we can look to the 3rd year wideout breakout. But it's still even Noah Fant. They're just a very young team right now. I like the direction that they're heading in. I love a Vic Fangio defense, which always makes it nice and it always helps keep the team involved there. But I just, with what we were talking about, Judy, Hamler, the youth that just hasn't had a chance to really play together very much here in the offseason, I could tilt on the under.
Yeah, Denver is really hard to handicap every year because they have that early season success always in Colorado. Teams aren't ready for it. And in general, if you look at the last 20 years of the Broncos, regardless of what their end record is, they usually start off okay, like 500 or close to it. They usually don't bomb. It's very hard to win there at the beginning of the season. Teams are not used to it. I watched them play a lot last year, and I am not a fan of the coach. I don't know if this is how he's planning on coaching in the future. And until I see something different, as opposed to watching that 30-second clock go down to one every time running the ball and then just trying to shorten the game, which is all Denver did. It's like a boring football team to watch. It's all on the quarterback, and I'm just not sure that he is given enough to succeed this year. I love Jerry Jeudy, and I think that he can be a great receiver, but with almost no practice time and no preseason time, that really hurts me a lot too. I don't understand the Gordon signing. I don't think that really does much either way. Out of conference games, Saints, Chiefs, Bills, Patriots, Buccaneers. I don't like Denver this year. I hope I'm proven wrong on this one, and I hope Locke ends up being a good quarterback in the NFL. But based on the way I saw the coaching go down last year with this team, I think it's a lot of running, a lot of boring games, and a 6-10 team. I'm going to go on.
I mean, I'll differ with you on that because they did change up the offensive coordinator
in the second half.
Yep. And this year they brought in Pat Shurmur. Pat Shurmur is now the offensive coordinator in Denver. We've seen the way he runs, he can run an offense. We saw him with the Giants. I think he got more of a raw deal in New York. I think they were just looking for scapegoats, but the personnel wasn't really gelling the way it should have anyway. So, Shurmur losing the head coaching job moves over as just the offensive coordinator, and I think that's a strength for him. I mean, again, I'm not saying that this is going to turn Denver around. I'll stay on the underside with my lean, but I just think that the offense does have a chance to develop. I think Vic Fangio realized that, Scarangelo last year wasn't the OC he wanted or needed. Fangio likes to focus his attention on the defense. So getting a guy like Shurmur, who's got both head coaching and offensive coordinator experience at the NFL level, I think does help these kids.
Yeah. Well, I hope that is the case, but it would really be surprising that they couldn't accomplish that last year with the most open slinging quarterback maybe we've seen outside of Favre in the NFL, of John Elway being the team president, and they still didn't do that last year. So maybe you're right, and maybe this is finally time for them to do that, but I just don't know with Fangio as the head coach that we'll ever see that happen. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe that will be the case, but I am not a fan of the way that they operated last year. And honestly, that's all I have to go on going into this year.
Well, I mean, this is that makes Denver a good team for you and I just to watch as we move forward.
Oh, I think you'll go right away with them the first couple of games. If we see it like last year where they run Gordon 20 times and run Lindsey the other 20 and run Freeman 6 times if he makes the team, then you know what you're getting. They're not going to win a lot of games.
I don't think that's it. I don't see that happening.
No, you can keep games close. We'll take them against the spread a lot, but they're not going to win a lot of games.
Right. I'm just saying, I just don't think that that's the scheme that they're going to run. So I don't think you're going to have to worry about it.
Okay. Well, we'll see on that one.
Moving on. Let's talk Houston Texans here. The big trade of DeAndre Hopkins in the offseason. Bill O'Brien crazy on the hot seat right now. GM and coach. I mean, there's a lot going on here. 10 wins last year. The number is 7.5. I'm sorry, 2.5 wins for losing DeAndre Hopkins. That seems a little bit much for me. So, I like the over here for Houston. I think they did make an adjustment on the offensive line. They bring in David Johnson also, who, I think, better back overall or style of back than even Carlos Hyde was last year. And Hyde rushed for 1,000 yards last season. So, give me David Johnson catching passes from Deshaun Watson, and I like the over.
Yeah, I mean, we agree on some things, we'll disagree on others. We'll start with the things that we agree on. I think that the world is on the under, and the world is against Bill O'Brien. And usually, when the world is on something, you got to go the other way, and you have to make this a contrarian pick and take the over. And I'll pass, but if I'm gonna make a pick, it's gonna be over 7.5. O'Brien may not be the best coach, he may not be the best GM, but every year this guy wins 9 games, like or 10 games or 11 games.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're going to win 8 or 9 games this year. And look, the other thing that with O'Brien and with Hopkins is that it's like hot take city with this guy. And who's to say that maybe Bill O'Brien knew something? Maybe Hopkins, maybe he won't be good. I mean, anything can happen in sports. Like let's see this play out a little bit, and then let's go back and say, hey, Bill O'Brien completely screwed up by trading Hopkins. But what if Hopkins is just not that good anymore? It sounds crazy, but maybe it's true. It's sports. Wild things happen. I think David Johnson's completely done. And I don't think and I don't even see him playing. Like I think he's finished. But he certainly could be back in some way and be okay, but he is someone I'm heavily against going into the season. They added Brandon Cooks. Eric Murray will help. They needed help in the defensive backfield. They signed him to a big contract too. So they do have a tougher schedule. Their opponents are 518 winning percentage this year. So there could be some pullback from 10 wins, but I don't think it's 2.5 like you said. And I think that's what you said first is the key. Are they was Hopkins worth 2.5 wins? Watson is worth 2.5 wins. I don't think Hopkins was. So I'm going to go over 7.5. Yeah, that's my lean.
All right. Indianapolis Colts. Wow, look at that. So the number is 9. Now, one of the best offensive lines in the game.
For sure.
They bring in a youngster in Jonathan Taylor to work alongside or possibly compete for the backfield job behind Marlon Mack. They bring in Phillip Rivers. Now, see, here's the thing for me, and I'm not so sure about this because, I mean, listen, T.Y. Hilton has a health problem. Michael Pittman, I absolutely love, but he's a rookie who hasn't had the time yet to do much. Paris Campbell doesn't do it for me. Phillip Rivers looked terrible last year. I don't necessarily know if that, if that's just going to magically be fixed by a better offensive line. It could help.
Could help.
But, I'm not so sold on the on the Colts here. And I got to tell you, the community is very bullish on the Colts this year. I've seen a number of people pick the Colts as their sleeper team in the AFC.
Yeah, I'm not. And look, it would be hard pressed to find someone who watches, and maybe because I'm known for doing more baseball, but on Saturdays and Sundays, this is all I do, and this is all I watch. And now I don't go back and watch film, after the season like these other guys do, and I can't say that I do that. But I do. I very similar to what I said about David Johnson. I feel the same way about Phillip Rivers. I don't think he's a huge upgrade over Jacoby Brissett. I think the number is about right. 8, 9 wins, somewhere along those lines. My lean would be under also, like you. Their offensive line was great last year, 3rd in the league, according to Pro Football Focus. The line was actually 8.5 for most of the spring. It moved up to 9. So you're right. A lot of people are pushing this number up. But for me, it is about the quarterback here. And I saw the quarterback play last year, and I did not like what I saw at all. And what is the history of quarterbacks going from being in the same spot for a long time and then going to another at the end of their career? It's usually the end, and I think that this is the end for Rivers. But I could see them eking out 9 wins, so I'm going to pass. But I'm with you. I am not seeing the Colts all of a sudden being a Super Bowl potential candidate with Rivers. I don't.
Yeah, I have no desire for that. All right, Jacksonville Jaguars. Here we go. Nice little low 4.5.
Right.
Gardner Minshew. He gets the call. He's under center. This is a team in a little bit of disarray right now. Obviously, The team doesn't like Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette doesn't really like the team. But they have to run him because you can't put him on the bench and then still expect to try and trade him away during the course of the season. So I see it being a very boring offense, very run-first offense. You'll see some highlights from Gardner Minshew to DJ Chark, but overall, This is not a team that I like. I don't like the weaponry, and if they get rid of Fournette midway through the season, I'm not sold on Raquel Armstead being a guy who's going to be able to really take care of this backfield. So 4.5, it's it's low. It's probably right where it should be, and I might even kind of tilt on the under.
Yeah, I think my concern with Jacksonville, and it'll be my same one with Carolina, is I think that when we look at those two teams, we look at the ones that are projected to be the worst in the NFL, that you have to, Howard, go back to last year in Miami and look what could happen to a team, even when they start off 0-6, 0-7, if they find the motivation to win at the end of the season. So being that happened to me last year, I'm very hesitant to go under any of these numbers because teams figure out a way somehow to win 4 or 5 games. Now, Cincinnati did not, clearly, and they went under their total last year, that's for sure. But Jacksonville in particular wasn't winning games on offense anyway, and then their defense fell apart last year. So they added Jay Schobert. They also added Rodney Gunther on defense. Yannick Ngakoue is amazing, but will he be there? I don't know. Fournette can keep them in games. Will he be there? I don't know. So I would wait on this total to see what happens right before the season. Are they going to dump those two guys? Because that would certainly change my opinion. But I would lean over. I would lean over 4.5 wins because this is just. I think Jacksonville somehow can get themselves to 5 or 6 wins. I don't know that I'll be as bullish on Carolina. They really stripped everything down and are going with all rookies on the defense this year, and they play in a division where they got to stop people. Jacksonville doesn't really play in a division outside of Baltimore. They really have to stop people all that often. At least that's not what I saw last year. So I'm not going to bet this, but I would lean over on Jacksonville 4.5. And even when you think a team is tanking, and I do think the Jaguars would love to have Trevor Lawrence next year, there's no doubt, don't fall victim to that because we thought that was the case with the Dolphins last year.
Yeah, that's true.
And they ended up winning 6 games easily.
Yeah, it was surprisingly easily, too. All right, Kansas
City.
5
games. The Dolphins win 5? I think they won 5, not 6. Sorry.
I think it's 5, yeah.
Yeah.
Kansas City Chiefs. Numbers 11.5. They won 12 games last season. Mahomes did miss time. So now the question is, Mahomes for a full season, he's got the weaponry in the receiving core and Kelsey at tight end. He's got the back in Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's extremely talented. The world is extremely bullish on him ever since Damian Williams opted out for the season. This is a great team. It really is. And I think that if Mahomes stays healthy the entire time, he doesn't catch the COVID, then I think that this is an easy over at 11.5. But here in the time of COVID, the question is how easy is that over right now? I'll still lean to the over, but I don't know if I'm going to bet it.
Yeah, I would just pass on this. It's look, they're the best team in the NFL. It's probably not particularly close. I guess Baltimore is right there with them as well. But yeah, I'm going to pass on this as well. I just, when a number is this high and you're reliant on one player, you're going down a road where you're taking a big chance. And I'm just not sure that they'll get that same sort of production if something was to happen to Mahomes, even with an injury of any kind. So you don't root for that. You don't want that to happen. And he did get that big payday. They're not concerned at all. There's also something to be said for a Super Bowl hangover a little bit. Would it be the worst thing in the world if the Chiefs ended up winning 11 games? They go 11-5. You lose your bet. They're a great team. So I'll just pass. That's all.
Thanks, Craig. All right, let's go.
I don't know that I'll ever do anything but pass on because they're the most unpredictable team in the NFL. So have at it.
Oh, the Chargers? Come on.
All right. No one ever has a good beat on that team, ever.
Nobody ever has a good beat on the Chargers. You know what? I think I do have a pretty good beat on them.
This is your pick, all you right here.
This is me.
I'm a hard pass on the Chargers.
All right. What I like about the Chargers here, their offensive coordinator who took over midway through last season, Shane Steichen, he's doing a copycat offense. He is copying the Baltimore offense. He's taking everything that he's seen Greg Roman do with mobile quarterbacks, whether it was Tyrod Taylor back in Buffalo, whether it was Kaepernick in San Francisco, whether it's Lamar Jackson in there. So you're going to see a lot of pistol formations. You're going to see a lot of RPO. They're going to try and deploy Tyrod Taylor very much in that same way that they had Lamar Jackson. Now, listen, Tyrod Taylor is nowhere near the talent that Lamar Jackson is, but I do like the scheme. And I do like, and even if you were to switch to Justin Herbert midway through the season, I think Herbert is mobile enough that he can run this offense well. They've got weapons in Keenan Allen, Hunter Henry. We'll see what happens with Mike Williams. Who
is their other receiver, by the way? I should have investigated this before, but who is their second receiver if it's not Mike Williams? Do you have any clue? Sorry to throw you under the bus there, but I've been thinking.
No. It's what's his name?
Benjamin?
No. Travis Benjamin? Yeah, this isn't 1988. Craig.
Charlie Joyner?
No, it's Johnny Lamb Jones. It's Guyton, Jared Guyton, Jalen Guyton.
That can't be good.
No, it can't be good, which is why you want Mike Williams' shoulder to be healthy and see what happens there. Nevertheless, I do like.
Look, they're gonna have 10 guys hurt after week 3. It's the same thing with the Chargers every year, Howard. And then and they have 10 guys hurt, but they somehow win 8 games. This is a horrible team to bet on. Please, can't convince me otherwise.
It's you. All right, you know what? I'm writing this one down too now.
What do you got? I'm passing. This is the hardest pass of all.
What I'm writing down is your thoughts on Denver, your thoughts on David Johnson, and your thoughts on the Chargers, because these are the 3 areas so far.
Wait till you hear Todd Gurley on Thursday. I'll give you that one too.
Oh wait, Todd Gurley.
Another one.
It's gonna be in a wheelchair.
I wouldn't go that far. Anyway, look, do you have a pick on the Chargers or not? I do not.
I'm not going to pick on the Chargers. I mean, you're doing a good job picking on the Chargers right now. But yeah, I mean, the 8 is a no bet for me as well. I think they do need to make some adjustments. And anytime that I'm going to be dealing with a quarterback, possible to change mid-season, I'm not loving that either.
I don't like Herbert either, by the way.
Okay. Grumble, said Craig. I got you.
Okay, let's move on to the Raiders.
Let's do that, right? Let's go to
total of 7.5, but if you bet the under, it's -145. So that's what's telling you. Brand new stadium this year. Looks like the Death Star. We saw that. Look, they're lacking big weapons on offense for sure, outside of Darren Waller. Tyrell Williams, you'll have to update me on his status, but it looks like he's out for a period of time at least. Ruggs could be great, but this was the one receiver I think that needed camp, like he needed to work with the quarterback a lot. Hopefully he did. I'm not sure. They made one of the best free agent signings though in the offseason. They got Corey Littleton. They had no linebackers. Of course, they let their main one go in Khalil Mack, and then finally now they got Littleton to replace him, and he plays every down. So that was a big signing for them. Their defense was horrible last year. They had a shot to make the playoffs. They signed 13 new free agents on defense. I don't like their division. So I'm going to listen, if the under is -145 and I can get +130 on the over, I'm going to lean over on the Raiders 7.5. I mean, what do they need to get? 8 wins? That doesn't seem insurmountable to me. But look, a lot of smart people say that this is a rebuilding team, but Gruden's being paid a lot of money. I think he's being paid to win, and they go into a season that when you're in a new stadium, you're supposed to show and represent for the fans. I understand there's no fans there, but can they just lay down in a brand new stadium and win 4 games this year?
They're not going to lay down. I mean, I think that they're a team that can compete at a solid level. I'm going to lean heavily on Josh Jacobs. But I do agree that this is a rebuilding team. You look at the wide receivers between Ruggs. I mean, forget Tyrell Williams. He's already hurt. He could end up missing, I think, up to like 3 weeks at the start of the season. Ruggs, Renfro, Brian Edwards, who they drafted this year, has actually been doing very, very well in camp. And I actually had him pegged to leapfrog Tyrell Williams in this offensive scheme. Put Ruggs on the outside, put Edwards on the outside, you stick Renfro in the slot, and it works out well. But I'm not sold on their defense. Just because you bring in Corey Littleton doesn't mean that the rest of the defense is honed up. I'm not a fan of their secondary at all. So, listen, I think with the 7.5, it's obviously a good number. I'd probably lean on the under here.
Okay, yeah, we see that differently. Miami is at 6. Of course, that was the one that burned me big last year. Looked like the bet of the decade, 6 games in. and somehow Miami rolled off a lot of wins. It was extremely disappointing for me there. They beat the Patriots. They finished 5-11 at the end of the year. Their number was 4.5 in a lot of places, and I ended up getting it at 5 and took the shot at -140, thinking, they'll never win 5, but just in case, we'll get the push. That stunk. The over is -135. There are a lot of people who think Miami is poised to get better than last year. I'm not one of them. I think that this is exactly the same team, and I think that they were really insulted and got extra motivated by losing the games in the way that they did last year. And I do like the coach. I think they're headed in the right direction. But honestly, they didn't really add a ton, and they lost a few players also opting out before the season in terms of their wide receivers, and another one of their wide receivers got hurt this week. So I think they're basically exactly the same team as they were last year, and eventually Tua is going to play, and anytime you put a rookie quarterback in at the end of the year, it's very uncertain as to what the performance will end up being. I am just strictly going to lean under again on Miami this year because I don't think that there is a ton of pressure for them to win this year. I think they'll play hard again for the coach. They had some very fortunate close game wins at the end of last year too, so I'm just going to go back to what happened last year and lean under. I could see them winning exactly 6 games, though.
Yeah, I could also, but I'll lean on the under also. I do like Chan Gailey as the offensive coordinator coming out of retirement. I'm a little disappointed in what I've seen out of Tua so far here in camp for the time that it's been right now. I do like the Jordan Howard, Matt Breida tandem in the backfield now. I'm not sold on the wide receivers. Preston Williams, did it for half a season last year before he tore his ACL. Devontae Parker's done it, 1 season in 5. So I can't really get behind that. And we all know that that Fitzmagic definitely has a shelf life to him, and it could be 2 weeks, it could be 4, but nevertheless, he's going to start this season for Miami, and I'll lean on the under, but again, I'll kind of stray from it. New England 9.5. That's the number.
This is a tough one.
You tell me, because I don't know, man. By your own accord, Cam Newton going from a team that he's only been with for years and years and years.
No, come on. There's a big difference between Cam Newton and Phillip Rivers, Howard. Come on.
Sure, of course there is a difference there.
Cam Newton's 31. Rivers is 76. I mean, it's Cam Newton.
Newton's also been banged up. Left. Newton's also been banged up, so
he has. But and by the way, I'm not saying that Cam Newton is going to be good at all, but the age differential is huge. I mean, you would think that a 31-year-old quarterback in the NFL could have another good 5 years left. I don't know that is the case, but this number is just it's tough, man. It obviously it looks like an under. And that's the feeling for a lot of people, I'm sure. -160 is on the under, so you could probably wait and get this at a 9 eventually. They have the hardest schedule in the NFL going into the year. New quarterback, new running backs, a lot of moving parts. Strength of schedule is very difficult. They finished the season against the Jets, so maybe this is if you can take them and then hedge the last week of the season based on them playing the Jets. I would lean under 9.5, but why is this number 9.5? There's got to be a reason for that. I guess we're really going to find out about Belichick this year.
It's Belichick. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, I'll turn the tables on you. Would you be surprised to see the team go 10-6?
I would not. I would not.
That would be a down year for the New England Patriots in the last 25 years.
It would not. But again, this is one that I would not bet, and the contrarian in me wants to go over this. I cannot do it though. I cannot do it because of my belief in Brady. So I'm just gonna lean on the under. I think that this is probably going to be one of the most boring teams in the NFL this year. I think their defense is fantastic, and they're going to try to win every game like that this year. Just slow the game down is my guess, but I'm going to just lean on the under. I'm definitely not going to bet against Bill Belichick, and I'm not going to bet the under here. But that's the way I got to lean.
All right, New York Jets 6.5. I'm on the under. As long as Adam Gase is the head coach of this team, I don't know what to expect from the backfield, from Le'Veon Bell. Darnold is developing. I like him a lot. I think Brashad Perriman, injuries got the better of him at the beginning of his career, and I think that he can actually develop nicely. Denzel Mims is raw, so I'm not sure about that, but you do have Jamison Crowder, and you've got a returning Chris Herndon. I just look at the Jets' schedule, and I wonder, with how bad the Jets were last year, how in the world did they get a strength of schedule that's so vicious
True.
against them? I
Yeah.
mean, it's really. I went through the schedule. And I was very hard pressed to find 4 wins for the Jets. The number
But
is six.
how did they win so many games with Sam Darnold? How? How did they pull that off?
Magic. I
They
don't
went
know
six
how
and
they.
two of them.
He's a good quarterback. He's a solid quarterback. But the problem is that I think Adam Gase is a crappy coach. I think
He's lost 10 games once.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
it.
You think that was, but you think that was Gase's coaching, or you think that's the personnel that he's working with?
I think that he is not well liked, and I think that he has a horrible attitude toward media, and it's really hard. He's not likable at all, but he is a mediocre coach that's going to get mediocre results, and there's a chance the Jets could be mediocre. I will say this: it's hard to disagree with you here. It is. I'm going to pass. It's hard to disagree with you here, but I will tell you this: the Jets are either going 1-15 or they're going to win 7 or 8 games, man. I don't think that this is going to be close. This is going to be. This is going to be either the Jets are going over this total and surprising everyone, or they're not winning a game.
Okay.
That's my feeling on them this year, because every single person that I speak to that knows football says exactly the same thing as you, which tells me I got to be careful on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how does this guy become considered some sort of quarterback guru because he had a good season with Peyton Manning in
I
Denver?
totally agree. I totally agree. But even with Miami, he found a way to get 7 or 8 wins out of that team. And who's to and if the Jets are not good, and you look at it with the Jets, if Howard, they win 7 games and have a bad year, you lose your money going on the under here.
Listen, you're making a mistake putting anything on the Jets at any point.
I'm not betting the Jets.
We're not betting the Jets. Let's take a look at the Steelers.
Okay.
9. They went 8-8 last year, and they didn't have Big Ben for the majority of the season.
Right.
I dig what they've got going on. I like James
too.
Conner in the backfield. I like the depth that they have in the backfield with McFarland they just drafted, Benny Snell.
I love Benny Snell. You know that, though.
I know you love Benny Snell. Receiving wise, listen, Deontay Johnson can take a step forward. Juju Smith-Schuster, I like. They brought in Eric Ebron. They drafted Chase Claypool, who, is like built like a tight end, plays like a wide receiver. I think the fact that Big Ben is back, they won 8 games last year without. I'll take the over on the 9 here.
Yeah, I'll agree. 8-8 with that quarterbacking last year. I mean,
Duck Hodges.
That was the worst quarterbacking we've seen over the course of the season from an NFL team in a long time, man. Like, even David Blau and the guys that Detroit was rolling out there at the end of the year ended up looking better than Pittsburgh did, and they still won 8 games somehow. So
defense is phenomenal.
Roethlisberger, his record is 143-68 as quarterback of the Steelers. That's an over 500 team. I'm with you. I think this number is too low, and I would take the Steelers over the 9 wins. I think they're going to win 10 games, maybe more. And clearly it's all on the arm of Big Ben if he's healthy. I mean, could they win 13 games? Absolutely. This could be a really good football team this year. And I like some of the additions. And by the way, Juju was out for a lot of last year too. So I'm with you, man. I think that this is a good number to go over 9.
All right, let's wrap up the AFC with the Tennessee Titans. They were the darling of the playoffs last year. Big upset over the Baltimore Ravens. They won 9 games last year. The number is 8.5 right now. Here's the funny thing about Tennessee. They're sticking with the same game plan.
It seems that way.
And you've got Derrick Henry, and you've got AJ Brown developing. You've got Ryan Tannehill. This is a team that I think is a little on the boring side to sit and watch. But I mean, I could see them with 8.5 wins. I would actually probably lean on the under because I think more teams will stack the box a little bit more against Derrick Henry. Try and key in on stopping him a little bit more. There aren't a lot of weapons to watch out for in the offense. And I just, I look at this team and I think that, here's a team that I think a lot of high expectations coming into the season tends to disappoint.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair assessment. Their total is 8.5. They won 9 last year, and our recency bias tells us to go over. My lean is over because I can't have a strong indictment against Indianapolis and think Jacksonville is not going to be very good, and Houston may take a step back. I mean, somebody has to be decent in the division, and so if I'm going to pick one of them, it probably would be Tennessee. But I don't think they would win more than 10 games. And if something was to go wrong, it could be worse. They won 3 out of 4 to finish the season. They won a lot of close games last year. Also lost a lot of close games last year. So there's nothing that you could really point to say, oh, that's something to go against this year, because it's something that I always look at. So just the lean on the over for me with the Titans, because again, if I'm building this narrative of a division, and I'm saying that Jacksonville is probably a 5 or 6 win team, and Indianapolis maybe a 7 or 8 win team, and maybe Houston is an 8-win team or a 9-win team, doesn't that mean Tennessee has to be above 500? I would think so. So a very light lean on the over 8.5 for me on Tennessee.
All right. So there we go. That's everybody in the AFC. I think we were most harmonious on maybe Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Baltimore as well. I think we were.
I would think Pittsburgh is the one that I think that I definitely feel the best about that one. I would say there. I think I'm sort of gun shy on the unders after last year with what happened. I swore myself off from betting totals in the NFL after what happened with Miami last year. So given the nature of everything that's happening in the NFL, if I'm going to do anything, it's going to be either the night before or 2 nights before. But yes, I think that Pittsburgh is the one that we see at the same. I think the number is too low. I think that that's a good football team going into this year. I'd be very surprised if they don't win 10 games.
All right. So there you go, everybody. That's the AFC. Craig and I will be back here on the Wager Alarm live stream on Thursday, same time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. We will we'll cap off the NFC, and then we'll be back on Tuesday after that. Maybe we'll talk some player props.
Sure.
Oh, probably not. Take the under everywhere. They all got the COVID.
Under. Yeah, I mean, I would guess, and a lot of places don't have anything out right now for college football, but they're gonna have to next week. I mean, it's getting too close for them not to. So I'll do a little research this weekend and see what we can come up with college-wise for next week. Hopefully there'll be some announcements.
All right. Well, then there you go, folks. So tune in on Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, right here, Wager Alarm live stream. Big thanks to our producer, Matt Sells, for always doing such great work. For Craig Mish, I'm Howard Bender. We'll catch you next time.